Millionaire returns at midnight and discovers a bone-chilling secret from his cleaner. The clock struck 12, and Harold Baxter stepped through the heavy oak door of his mansion, the creak echoing in the eerie silence of the sprawling halls. Something was off. The lights flickered just as he brushed past them, casting wild shadows that danced along the walls like ghosts. A chill ran down his spine, and he glanced back, half expecting someone to be lurking. But it was just him and the oppressive night, thick with a sense of foreboding. His eyes darted around the lavish entryway, the gilded decor suddenly feeling less like luxury and more like a gilded cage. Among all the riches, there was something unsettling brewing in his chest, as if the air were charged with electricity just before a storm. As he moved towards the staircase, he spotted a glimmer on the floor, a strange shimmer that caught the light. He leant down, heart racing. Was it a broken ornament? No, it was a small shard of bone. Harold felt his stomach drop. His mind raced. Who had been here? What had they been doing? He hadn't had anyone in his mansion since the last party, weeks ago. The memory of the cheers, laughter, and clinking glasses felt miles away now. Now it was just this gritty, bone fragment and the oppressive quiet that cut like a knife that he swallowed hard and felt a lump forming in his throat. The housekeeper usually came twice a week. Margaret. What if she had seen something? Or worse, what if something had happened to her? The notion made his hands tremble. He could already imagine her warm smile and gentle demeanor. But now, a sinking feeling settled. What if she had stumbled onto something that didn't belong? With pounding heart, he took the steps 2 at a time, driven by a desperate need to uncover the truth. The sound of his own footsteps echoed back at him, amplifying the growing tension. Each thud against the floor sent a shudder through him. Did he hear something? A whisper? A laugh that didn't belong. Before he could think too much, he reached the end of the hall. The door to the utility room stood ajar. It was darker than the rest of the house, shadows stretching unnaturally against the walls. A foul smell wafted through the crack, hinting at the unsettling secrets lurking inside. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. For a split second, he stepped back, wishing he hadn't walked into this haunting uncertainty. But he took a deep breath and pushed the door wider. The dark room opened like a gaping mouth, and the air was heavy and musty. He leaned in, peering into the depths of the shadows. His heart raced faster as he felt the weight of hidden truths lurking within. What could he uncover behind this door? What dark secret had his cleaner stumbled upon? And why did the hairs on his arms stand up as if they were warning him to turn back? He knew he had to find out. He had already passed the point of no return. What he would learn next, he couldn't even begin to fathom. Harold stepped cautiously into the utility room, his heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. The stench hit him like a physical blow, sour and decayed. It seeped into his lungs and clawed at his throat. Shivers cascaded down his spine as he scanned the room, but there was little to see. Dim light filtered in from a flickering bulb, casting a sickly glow over stacks of old boxes and crumpled dust covers. There, nestled among the forgotten objects, was something amiss. It was a trunk, battered and worn, its once bright paint now peeling away, exposing raw wood beneath. He felt an insane urge to open it, to pry into the darkness it held, as if it would contain the answers to what had happened to Margaret. The silence was deafening. Only the sound of Harold's breath and the distant creaking of the house filled the air. Sweat trickled down his back, his hands shaking as he reached for the latch. This was no longer just a search for the truth. It felt like unearthing a horror story. But curiosity burned hotter than his fear. With one hard tug, the latch snapped open, and he lifted the lid. A wave of rancid air washed over him, and he recoiled, fighting the urge to gag. Inside were remnants of old rags and discarded tools, yet something caught his eye, glinting dully underneath. With a shaky hand, he scooped out the contents, and his stomach churned at what lay before him. There, tangled among the refuse, was a collection of personal items, jewelry, letters, and a photograph. He flipped it over, and his heart nearly stopped. The woman in the picture wasn't just any stranger. It was Margaret, her smile radiant yet haunting. Who had taken this? Why did it end up here? Suddenly, a noise, a thud, low and deliberate, echoed from somewhere deeper inside the room. Panic welled up inside him. Who else was here? He was not alone. He felt it in his bones. Margaret? He called out, the name choking him. Silence swallowed his voice. The only response was the relentless pounding of his heart echoing in his ears. He stepped back, almost falling over the trunk as he gripped the edges for support. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Shadows danced at the far end of the room, a darting figure barely visible, slipping between the unlit corners. His pulse raced wildly as he forced himself to take a step forward, fueled by both fear and a desperate need for answers. Who is there? He demanded, his voice barely a whisper against the oppressive air. The figure halted, and for a fleeting moment, it turned towards him, dark, indistinct, yet all too real. Harold's gut churned as he strained to see more, but the shadows concealed everything. He took another step closer, adrenaline surging through his veins, his mind screaming at him to turn back. But it was too late. The figure lunged from the darkness, a flash of movement that sent him stumbling back. As terror enveloped him, Harold felt dread twist in his chest. Had he finally come too close to the truth? What is going on? He gasped, but the words barely left his mouth when the figure let out a chilling laugh that pierced through the silence, sending shivers reverberating through his bones. In that moment of shock, with fear paralyzing him, Harold understood something unimaginable lay ahead. And what haunted him was not just the truth, but the reality of who he could trust in his own house. As he stood there, heart racing and dread cascading over him, another thought crept into his mind: what if Margaret knew too much? Just then, the lights went out, plunging everything into complete darkness. What would he do next? And could he survive whatever secret was lurking just beyond his sight? The darkness tightened around Harold like a suffocating blanket, oppressive and filled with an echoing stillness that seemed to taunt him. His heart drummed a frantic beat in his chest, each thud growing louder as he struggled to steady his breathing. With no light to guide him, the room transformed into a maze of shadows and uncertain sounds. Hello? His voice cut through the silence, trembling at the edges. The chill in the air was almost alive, wrapping around him, amplifying the tension. Every breath felt heavy as he sensed the weight of the unknown pressing down. Suddenly, he heard a soft shuffle, a footstep on the creaky floorboards just to his right. His instinct was to recoil, to retreat back into the faint light of the hallway. But what if it was Margaret? The thought sent him stumbling forward into the abyss, fueled by desperate hope. Margaret! He called again, louder now, his voice trembling with a mix of urgency and fear as he swirled around, trying to catch a glimpse of anything, anyone. The distant creaking of the house morphed into whispers, hushed and sinister, wrapping around him like a cocoon of dread. A flicker, just a flash. The light bulb overhead sputtered, its brief glow illuminating the outlines of boxes and dusty tools before plunging him back into the void. Then, that laugh, sharp and derisive, rang out again. It echoed in the darkness, making his skin crawl. This time it was closer. He froze, heart racing. Who was this? What did they want? Show yourself, he shouted, but his challenge felt feeble, swallowed by the oppressive gloom. Out of the corner of his eye, something shifted again. There it was, an impossible silhouette darting behind the trunk, only to vanish before he could focus. Fear gripped him, freezing him in place. He could feel the suffocating weight of despair gnawing at his insides. Someone was playing games with him in the dark, and he was losing. With one final surge of determination, he reached for his phone, fumbling in his pocket for the cold device. Flashlight, a distraction or salvation? He needed to see, to understand. As the screen blazed to life, he suddenly felt exposed, like a spotlight had searched him out in a crowded room. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the utility room with artificial brilliance. Shadows flickered and danced as the piercing light hit the walls, but there was no sign of life, no sign of Margaret. Just then, he noticed something on the ground, a glint of metal amidst the grime. He pointed the light down, revealing a small key, ornate and strange, lying half-buried among the detritus. Why was it here? Whose was it? Harold knelt to pick it up, his fingers trembling as he turned it over. The metal felt cold, a stark contrast to the heat flooding his body. A sudden thought seized his mind, a key to what? Memories rushed forward, swirling chaos. Had Margaret hidden something away? Was the trunk more than just a collection of junk? The air grew colder, and his heart skipped. Was he being watched? He scanned the room again, pacing slowly, flashlight beam shaking in front of him as if it had a mind of its own. The shadows morphed into something sentient, sinister, wrapping around him tighter with each hesitant step. A realization dawned: dark corners might conceal more than memories. They could house secrets, treachery, peril. In that moment, the depth of his isolation sank in. And then a voice broke through the darkness, soft and mocking. "You shouldn't be here, Harold." He spun around, but the source of the voice seemed to flit between the walls, a teasing whisper cloaked in shadows. "What do you want from me?" he gasped, desperation filling his lungs. "They're coming for you," the voice cooed, echoing hauntingly in his mind. Harold's heart raced. Coming for him? Who were they? What had he stumbled into? As the shadows twisted and writhed, and the laughter surrounded him, Harold took a deep breath. This was no longer just about Margaret. This was a fight for his life, and the truth was just beginning to unveil itself. But with every passing second, he understood. He might uncover more than his past could hold. What chilling secrets awaited him in the darkness? And who would emerge as the true threat? Harold's breath stuck in his throat. The light from his phone created a fragile bubble of safety, but even the glow felt weak against the encroaching shadows. The mocking voice lingered in his mind, slithering around him like a snake in the dark. He couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone, and that whoever was out there, they meant him harm. "Who's coming for me?" he shouted, his voice breaking. The question echoed off the walls for what seemed like eternity, swallowed by the stillness that followed. Silence. Dense, thick, and oppressive, it pressed down on him as if the night itself was alive, conspiring against him. He took a step back, the flashlight beam shaking in his hand. Every creak of the house sent jolts of fear through his body, but he pressed forward, the cold key heavy in his pocket. If it held the answer, he needed to find it. He had to deal with whatever waited for him, whatever lurked in those dark corners. The far wall drew his attention, shadowy and inviting. Behind it lay the trunk Margaret had kept hidden for years. A mix of anxiety and determination coursed through him. He aimed his flashlight toward the trunk, illuminating the dust and cobwebs that clung like neglect to its surface. It was a vessel of secrets, perhaps containing answers to questions he dared not ask aloud. With a trembling hand, he reached for the latch, his fingers pausing just as they brushed the cold metal. What if whatever lay inside was worse than what faced him out here? Could those secrets put him in more danger? His mind raced, chaos twisting around his thoughts. But then again, what choice did he have? Ignorance could be just as deadly. He flipped the latch. The trunk creaked open, the lid rising with a reluctant groan that sent a chill racing down his spine. He shined the light inside, and there it was, a collection of old photographs, dusty papers, and a few familiar items buried in the folds of time. But it was the familiar scent wafting out, the one that smelled of magic and memories, that caught him off guard. Among the clutter, he noticed something peculiar. An envelope marked with Margaret's unmistakable handwriting. His heart raced, a comet of hope streaking through the darkness. Maybe she had left something behind, something that would explain everything. Before he could reach in, the distant sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, a deliberate, measured tread that sent a shock of fear down his spine. "No," he whispered, paralyzing dread clawing at his insides. Who was it? Was it the one who had been watching him? Had they arrived? A flash of uncertainty rolled through him. He had felt something lurking, and now it seemed to be closing in, the walls tightening as if the house itself was alive with threats. The flashlight beam flickered, and he fought to keep it steady while he deliberated. Should he hide? Confront this newcomer? Harold, the voice this time was soft, almost comforting, but dark edges curled around it. He crouched behind the trunk, heart hammering against his ribs, gripped by the instinct to flee. The footsteps drew closer, a slow, deliberate march. And just as they reached the doorway, silence fell. Was it waiting for him? Was this the moment everything would change? He wished for Margaret, to hear her voice again. But this time, he didn't know if it would be soothing or sinister. The flashlight stuttered, flaring dangerously. Harold's pulse quickened as he peered over the edge of the trunk. But all he could see was deep, engulfing darkness. "Show yourself," he whispered fiercely, hoping to distract from his own fear. Then a figure stepped into the light, a shadow against shadows. "What have you found?" The voice leaned into a taunting whisper. Panic surged through Harold as he realized he was not just in a fight for answers. He was in a fight for his life, and the echoes of secrets long buried were hungry for blood. Desperation clawed at him. Could he trust Margaret's secrets? And who was this figure that loomed before him? A harbinger of the darkness he had only begun to unveil. With everything on the line, he braced himself, knowing that the revelations lurking in that trunk might just be the key to his salvation or the cause of his undoing. What lay ahead was a truth far more terrifying than the shadows. Would he be ready to face it? The figure stepped closer, the flashlight beam revealing a face twisted into a mockery of a smile, a grin that sent chills racing down Harold's spine. He swallowed hard, feeling the burn of bile at the back of his throat. The woman, long, dark hair framing sharp features, had a look in her eyes that was unsettling, a blend of curiosity and malice. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to inject strength into his voice, but it came out as a strangled whisper. "Someone who knows far more than you think," she replied cryptically, tilting her head as if to study him. Almost like she was savoring the fear that flickered across his face, Harold gripped the edge of the trunk, nails digging into splintered wood as he forced himself to remain still. The envelope, Margaret's handwriting, was mere inches away, yet the truth lingering just beyond it felt heavier than the darkness surrounding him. The air was charged, almost electric, leaving him breathless. "You have questions, don't you?" The woman's voice dripped with sickly sweetness. "Questions they don't want you to ask. Who are they?" Harold tried to sound assertive, but doubt clawed at him. "Those who wear masks of civility while hiding the darkness behind closed doors." She stepped closer, her shadows blending seamlessly with the dimness of the room, creating an atmosphere that felt liquid and suffocating. "You found Margaret's secrets, but you need to understand they might be dangerous." With a swift motion, she pointed at the open trunk, the contents still shrouded in dust and years gone by. "Are you ready to face the truth buried within?" Sweat trickled down the small of Harold's back as he considered her words. What if she was right? What if the answers he sought would only pull him deeper into a web of danger? But then, regret washed over him. He had been circling a question ever since Margaret had left him everything. He needed to confront the shadows of their past, even if the present felt utterly daunting. "What do you know about it?" His voice was steadier now, fueled by a desperate need for answers. "I know she has kept the truth hidden about you, about your family, and about what really happened before her passing." There was a glint in her eye, an eagerness that made him shudder. "You are dancing on the edge, and the fall will be far worse than you can imagine." With a flick of her wrist, she illuminated the envelope with the light from his phone, as if daring him to take it. "Open it. You're close to finding out who you really are." Harold's heart thundered in his chest as he reached for the envelope, fingers trembling. The shadows felt alive around him, teasing and pressing in, and he fought against the urge to retreat. "Be careful what you wish for, Harold," she warned, the sweetness of her voice now laced with a predatory edge. "Some secrets were kept for a reason." The moment he touched the envelope, a blast of cold air swept through the room, slamming the trunk shut with a definitive thud. It reverberated around him, silencing the sudden swell of panic that shattered his focus. "What did you do?" He was not sure he wanted to know the answer, the very essence of fear sneaking into his bones. "It wasn't Timmy," she whispered. "It's the house. It knows you are unraveling the past, and doesn't he appreciate being disturbed?" Harold felt the ground beneath him shift. The walls seemed to breathe, and shadows clung tighter as the lights dimmed, the flashlight flickering ominously. "What do you mean?" he breathed, grasping for understanding amid the unsettling atmosphere. "Everything matters, Harold. The hours growing late, the darkness wants a toll for the truth." The finality of her words killed his breath. The reality settled upon him like a heavy shroud. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet curiosity rooted him in place. As if the walls themselves had ears, an unsettling whisper echoed. taunting him with a promise of deeper revelations just beyond his reach. "Are you ready to meet your past?" she asked, the smile unfading, the shadows swirling dangerously close. He hesitated, feeling the weight of all the mysteries pressing against him, then jolted, drawn with an irresistible pull toward the envelope amidst a sea of uncertainty. Would he step beyond the threshold into the darkness and allow the truth to devour him whole? With the shadows closing in, one question pierced through the chaos. Was he strong enough to confront what lay ahead? And then the shadows lunged. Harold stumbled back, adrenaline surging through him, as the shadows lunged with an almost sentient hunger. It felt like they were reaching for him, a black wave desperate to pull him into its depths. His instincts screamed for him to run, to escape this spiraling nightmare. But the woman's gaze held him firm, a strange magnetism that gripped him tighter than any chains. "Don't resist," she whispered, the words wrapping around him like smoke. "The truth demands to be revealed." His mind raced. Should he fight? Should he flee? But before he could decide, the envelope glowed ominously, emitting a pale light that pierced through the thick darkness. The air grew colder, the shadows hesitating as if unsure whether to retreat or strike. The woman took a languid step forward, weaving through the dark like a phantom. "Open it, Harold," she urged gently, her voice swirling around him like a caress. "You must know, it's not just about Margaret. It's about you, the legacy that ties you to her." Every fiber of his being shouted for him not to. This felt like a trap, a dangerous game played by forces he couldn't understand. But the curiosity was like a push from behind, shoving him closer to the edge. He approached the trunk again, hands quaking but curiosity outweighing the terror. The envelope beckoned like a siren-esque call, pulling him in. With hesitant fingers, he tore it open, the sound of ripping paper stark against the ominous silence. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he withdrew a stack of faded photographs. They were mementos of a life he never lived, snapshots of moments filled with laughter and hurt. A young couple holding a baby, the same dark hair framed in a soft glow somewhere beneath old oak trees, their smiles bright against the shadows. But it wasn't just any couple. A sudden, jarring recognition struck him like a bolt. "This is me, and Margaret?" The woman nodded, eyes flickering with something that resembled satisfaction. "There's much you don't remember. Much I can show you." As Harold turned over the photo, another slid from the stack and fluttered to the floor. He leaned down instinctively. The moment he laid eyes on the new image, a chill shot through him. There among the crumpled leaves was a figure mysterious and dark, watching the couple. The eyes glinted with an eerie familiarity, sending a wave of dread crashing over him. Who is this?" he stammered, breathless, his pulse echoing the terror rising in his throat. The woman's smile faded slightly, replaced with something colder, more measured. "That's not just anyone. That's the shadow that has haunted your family. You thought it was all behind you, but it's not. It never has been." The air thickened, and suddenly the shadows roared to life, swirling violently as if in agreement. The temperature dropped, frost creeping over the walls, and the once muffled whispers escalated to a terrifying crescendo. "Harold." Her voice was dangerously low, steady despite the chaos. "You must reclaim your heritage. But it comes with a price." The ground seemed to tremble beneath him, and he felt the darkness press in, suffocating his thoughts, threatening to drown him in its depths. Will you choose to uncover the truth, or will you hide from your past? The question resonated deep within him, sharp and clear. He felt the weight of generations bearing down on his shoulders, a legacy entwined with secrets and darkness. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the trunk vibrated violently, as if something inside was scratching to get out. The very essence of the house shuddered around him, and he could feel the breath of history whispering in his ear. With his heart pounding, Harold realized he was standing at a precipice. What awaited him on the other side? Secrets that might destroy him or make him whole. And as he took a shaky breath, a voice from the shadows hissed, "Choose wisely, for the wish of the past may take more than you've bargained for." A deafening silence followed the shadow's ominous warning, wrapping Harold in an icy grip as he processed the weight of the moment. The trunk shook again, a low, throaty growl emanating from its depths, and Harold's instincts screamed at him to move. Yet, He stood frozen, caught between fear and an insatiable longing for the truth. The woman, still standing before him, seemed to draw strength from the gathering chaos. Her features were sharp, contrasting with the soft glow of the envelope. Every family has dark corners, Harold. Yours is no exception. The time for denial is over. You must confront what lies within. He felt bile rise in his throat. This wasn't just about him or Margaret. It was about an entire legacy tangled in shadows that he reached for the trunk, his hand trembling as it settled on the edge. With a swift motion, he flung it open. The air burst forth like a trapped breath, carrying a scent of damp earth and decay. Among the relics inside, an antique mirror caught his eye, its glass clouded and cracked. "Look," she prompted softly, guiding him as if she held the strings to his fate. "Look into it. You are not ready for what you will see." His pulse raced. "What do you mean?" But before she could respond, the shadows surged, swirling around him like wraiths hungry for his essence. The mirrors reflected fractured images, morphing into a kaleidoscope of his memories, memories he had never known he had. "See," the woman exclaimed, her voice cutting through the din. "See who you truly are." Harold took a tentative step closer to the mirror. The face looking back was familiar yet unfamiliar, his features twisted as if viewed through a fog. But just then, the image shifted. A second person materialized, a dark figure hovering in the background, its eyes aglow with a feral intensity. The corners of its mouth curled into a sinister grin. "No," he gasped, instinctively stumbling back. The mirror morphed again, transforming the image into a blurred visage of Margaret screaming, a soundless plea echoing through his mind. "Margaret!" he shouted, panic seizing him. "What did you do to her?" "The truth surfaces only to those brave enough to face it," the woman replied, her voice now tinged with an eerie calm. "You cannot protect her without first accepting your part in this." His gut twisted, realization creeping in. Margaret wasn't just an innocent bystander. She was entwined in this web as surely as he was. The dark figure loomed larger, an aura of malevolence saturating the air. Suddenly, the wall behind him shook, the wood splintering, and the ground shifted again as though the very house was alive, demanding retribution. "Harold, look!" The woman pointed fiercely as the shadows began to rise, coiling around him, merging with the darkness of the past. "You must choose now. Dive deep, but no, rescue may come at a cruel price." With his heartbeat hammering erratically, Harold felt the shadow's fingers curl around his mind, pulling him toward tangled histories rife with pain and revelations. Every scream, every smirk, this was the legacy he had been unknowingly embraced by. "Do you dare to unlock this hell? Or will you retreat into denial?" The woman's voice became an enticing whisper, full of seduction and danger. Harold's breath hitched, wavering between choices that felt as if they could tear him apart. He glanced again at the mirror, his own face now eclipsed by the malignant figure. "Where's Margaret?" he shouted into the void, desperate for an answer that might save them both. But all he faced was the echoing laughter of the shadows. Promising fate was set in motion. What could he sacrifice to protect her? What truth would be uncovered? As the darkness threatened to envelop him completely, a long-held secret shuddered in the air. Was he already too late? His heart thundered beneath layers of dread. And as he stood at the edge of shadow and revelation, a voice in the dark snapped, "Your choice must come before dawn. But not everyone will survive when the clock strikes midnight." The shadows writhed like living things, slipping through Harold's fingers as he tried to grasp the truth that lay buried within them. The woman's eyes gleamed with an unsettling knowledge. "You cannot hide from what's expected of you," she whispered, her voice a chilling caress. "What blood has tasked you to uncover will demand its due." Summoning courage he didn't know he had, Harold took a lungful of stale air and faced the mirror again. It beckoned him, drawing him deeper. He brushed a trembling finger against the cracked surface, and the reflection rippled like water disturbed by a stone. "Find the fragment of truth that connects you to her," the woman urged, her features shifting subtly in the flickering light of the candles that surrounded them. "You have been living in the shadows of your father's sins. Only through your own eyes will you see the way clear." The growl from the trunk surged again, drowning out the crashing sound of his thoughts. It was an unearthly sound, thrumming beneath his skin. There was a growing urgency to resolve this unseen, knot tightening around his chest. He had to act, but what direction could he take against such uncertainty? Margaret, I need to save her. Panic laced his voice as he gripped the mirror's edge, feeling its coldness seep into him. Start by examining your past, she said, her voice resonating with wisdom and foreboding. What did your father hide? What did he bury with the dark? The mirror flickered again, and this time, it showcased scenes of laughter and sunlight, celebrations that felt foreign to him. He saw a boy running toward an adult figure, only to be met with a stern dismissal. The boy's face twisted into confusion and fear his face. With an agonizing jolt, he remembered. He had tucked away those feelings, cataloging them as nothing but childhood disappointments. But now, they emerged, bubbling to the surface as emotions spilled forth. He had thought he had forgiven his father for abandoning him, but it was more than that. It was a blanket of anger hidden beneath layers of indifference, held by fear of judgment and denial. Look closer, she commanded, urgency lacing her words. Those feelings are the keys to understanding the real danger. Harold focused harder, an unshakable knot tightening in his gut. He saw a second boy, significantly older, with eyes like burning coals, watching the first from a distance. The older boy wore a grin filled with malice he hadn't noticed before. Suddenly, the boy opened his mouth, screaming a soundless cry that cut through his core. A horrifying clarity crashed around him. The longing for connection had put him in the crosshairs of generational darkness. The malevolence in that older boy's gaze transformed into an echo that reverberated through the years. This was not merely about family secrets. It had become a monstrous lineage of regret and revenge. What do I do? His thoughts tumbled out in a rush. How can I protect Margaret from this? An unseen force gripped his heart, squeezing tighter as the shadows quivered. The woman stepped closer, her voice steady despite the chaos. You must confront the legacy head-on. Accept the blood that runs through your veins. You are stronger than you believe. The shadows twirled like a vicious cyclone, and just as he braced himself for the tempest within, the mirror shimmered. The dark figure appeared once more, now eclipsing the boy. The glare of its eyes bore into his soul. In that moment, clarity dawned. He had to step into the darkness, to embrace everything he had repressed. This was his chance to halt the cycle, to rewrite the nightmare woven into his past. But the cost? That remained uncertain. Make your choice, the woman said softly, as the walls of the house moaned under the weight of truth. What will you sacrifice to sever this chain of horror? And just then, the distant chime of a clock echoed through the silence, every toll reminding him of the life still clinging to the edges of turmoil. Will you find redemption in the dark? Echoed a voice from the shadows. His choice loomed, a fragile thread, between safety and ruin, but time was running out. He had mere moments before midnight, and with it could come the unfathomable. What would he uncover if he dared to step deeper? Would that dark figure finally show him the truth, or pull him into an abyss from which he could never return? The shadows danced wildly, responding to the turmoil churning within Harold. He felt the pulse of his heartbeat echoing through the deteriorating walls, the weight of generations pressing down as the clock struck closer to midnight. Face it, the woman urged softly, her voice a tether in the storm. You must understand your father's past before you can save Margaret. Every secret buried in the dark will fight against you, but you won't be alone. Was he brave enough to step into that abyss, to confront the twisted legacy of his bloodline? Taking a deep breath, he stepped closer to the mirror's surface. The cold glass sent chills through him, but he steeled his resolve. The reflection rippled again, and the dark figure emerged, its form less shadow now and more like a mirage of whispered fears. It beckoned him, an invitation into the unknown. Do you dare? It murmured, its voice a sinister lilt that sent shivers crawling up his spine. What are you willing to sacrifice? Flashes of memory danced in his mind. Anger, betrayal, loneliness. Each revelation from his past surged forward like an unrelenting tide. Flames of despair ignited around him, licking at his heels. He squeezed his eyes shut, but visions continued to invade his mind, his father's harsh demeanor, the echoes of his childhood laughter drowned by sharp words. Leave it alone, his father would say, time and again, dismissing any semblance of emotional connection. The boy he once was shook with fear. yearning for acceptance. Look deeper. The woman's encouragement felt like a lifeline, but the words twisted in the air, thickening with foreboding. Harold took a plunge into the chaos. As he pushed against the glass, he was seized by a suffocating darkness, then yanked into a memory that felt raw and painful. He stood once more as that small boy aged 6, wide-eyed, standing alone at a party where adults spun tales full of laughter around him. But they were mere shadows to him, their faces obscured. Why didn't he want me? The boy's voice trembled, echoing through the room. And then came the darker memory, the day he first saw the older boy in the background, smirking like the devil. The boy had whispered things into the young Harold's ear, speaking of revenge against a father who had forgotten him. You know it's in your blood, the specter had sneered, revealing a grinning face brimming with malicious intent. You're meant to indulge. No, Harold cried out, the sound ripping through time. I refuse to carry this burden. The moment he declared his defiance, the darkness around him hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty in the malevolent figure's gaze. Could it actually fear him? The realization sent a jolt of energy through his veins, lighting a spark of fierce determination. I choose to break the chain. His voice filled the chamber, shaking loose the heavy shadows that sought to consume him. With renewed courage, he lunged forward into the blackness, determined to seize the truth his father had shackled deep within. A maelstrom of memories swirled around him, dizzying images of shouted accusations, tears shed in silence, and a history festooned in fear and regret. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through, illuminating a small chest buried in ages of darkness. It pulsated with energy, revealing a glimmer of silver. The growl from the trunk outside intensified, resonating like a sinister chant, drawing him closer to uncovering a long-buried secret. Are you ready to see? The woman asked, her voice both haunting and inspiring. Harold reached for the chest, heart racing, unsure if it housed salvation or a damning curse. Just as he gripped the ornate latch, the clock's chimes echoed louder, drowning out his thoughts and urging him toward an unsettling truth. What would he find inside? Were his ancestors' horrors truly contained, or had they laid bare their souls, ready to lash out once again? The weight of history pressed upon him, as did the awareness that whatever lay inside could irrevocably change his future, and Margaret's survival depended on it. But with a deep breath, he steeled himself, drawn to the swirling shadows, prepared finally to uncover what had been hidden in the depths of his lineage. As he opened the chest, a profound silence enveloped the room, anticipation hanging like smoke in the air. What was waiting for him on the other side? Would it be the key to release Margaret, or a revelation that would shatter him forever? The chest creaked ominously as Harold opened it, revealing a jumble of items, old letters, dusty trinkets, and a glimmering silver locket. But the most striking was a journal, its leather cover cracked and worn, whispering secrets long veiled in time. An unsettling chill crescendoed in the air, as if the house exhaled with the weight of what had been unearthed. He picked up the journal and flipped it open, heart racing, ready to dive into the depths of his family's past. The familiar scrawl of Margaret's handwriting struck him immediately, clearer than any previous moment. To find the truth, one must turn the page, it began. The words twisted his gut, igniting a mix of fear and hope within him. As he read through the entries, a pattern emerged, tales of buried secrets, hidden identities, and a legacy riddled with regret. As he flipped to the last entry, a familiar name caught his breath. Henry. His father's name echoed ominously through the recesses of his mind, memories swirling up like a tempest. The journal revealed that Henry had gone to extreme lengths to protect the family's reputation, culminating in the death of someone close to them who he now realized was Margaret's sister. The walls of deception had hidden that truth from him, wrapping him in a dreadful ignorance. Margaret, he mumbled, grasping the locket. Inside, a tiny photograph captured Margaret and her sister, their smiles radiant in contrast to the grim revelations. He couldn't hold the tears back. The weight of sorrow and loss crashed upon him. He understood now that Margaret had been the guardian of those sacred truths. The shadows throbbed around him, creeping closer as they inhaled deeply, eagerly awaiting his next move. I won't let you take her, he shouted defiantly into the darkness. The clock struck one solid chime, a haunting echo vibrating through the house, cutting through the tension like a blade. He rushed to the utility room door, where the whispers of the shadows reached a fever pitch. "You think closing your eyes will save you?" They taunted, laughter threading through the air, mocking his resolve. With his heart pounding, he burst through the door, traversing back into the entryway, pulse racing, the journal clutched tightly in his hand. He could sense the air electrified, a volatile energy swirling from every shadow. "Margaret," he called, voice cracking, desperate for her presence, for clarity amid chaos. The shadows flickered, momentarily revealing dark silhouettes, but then fading back into obscurity. Suddenly, a piercing scream slashed through the quiet, a sound that sent chills rippling through him. It came from the hallway where Margaret was kept hidden. "No," he shouted, racing forward, determined to find her before the darkness engulfed everything. As he sprinted through the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, memories melded with visions of the past, a fractured family, unspoken horrors, and the damning truth that had been swept under the rug for too long. He heard another scream, and this time it clenched his insides, propelling him further. Then, abruptly, he found her, Margaret, bound and struggling against dark tendrils that rose from the floor, wrapping around her limbs like serpents. "Harold," she gasped, eyes wide with fear and defiance. "Hold on, I'm coming," he shouted, reaching for her, ready to fight against whatever evil sought to claim her. The shadows moaned in anger, sensing their grip slipping. As he approached, he brandished the journal, memories flooding him, lessons on resilience, love, and the power of truth. "Your hold over her ends now," he bellowed, lifting the journal high. "I know what you've done. I know the truth, and I won't let you harm her." The shadows writhed, hissing as they recoiled from the brightness radiating from the journal, the words spilling forth like light. "You dare challenge us?" The shadowy presence replied in a voice that echoed like thunder. "Yes," he declared, heart racing with newfound courage. "I choose to stand with love, not fear. I won't let your darkness consume Margaret or anyone else." Each word was a talisman, breaking down the malevolence surrounding them. With a guttural roar, the shadows lunged at him. But as they neared, a glowing surge erupted from the journal, dispersing the darkness with every syllable he spoke. "You are nothing more than a whisper in the night," he cried, adrenaline spurring him forward. "You will not take anyone from me again." The shadows convulsed, darkness swirling, the air thickening as it fought against the light. And finally, with one last desperate shout, he invoked the truth that had been buried for years. "Leave her be. She deserves to live in the light." In that instant, with a horrendous scream, the shadows erupted in chaos, flinging themselves away from Margaret, dissolving like smoke in the wind. The room brightened as the bonds imprisoning her dissolved, leaving her free to run into Harold's arms. "I thought I'd lost you," he gasped, holding her tightly, feeling the warmth and life amidst the remnants of darkness. "What happened?" she asked, eyes glancing fearfully at the dissipating shadows. "I uncovered the truth, and I chose to fight, to choose love," he explained, relief flooding through him. "We can unravel this dark legacy together." As they stood in the fading light, the weight of the past lifted, transforming the house around them. The shadows in the corners shrank, and the air lightened, filled with the promise of new beginnings. They had uncovered the past, but they were no longer shackled by it. Hand in hand, they walked through the entryway, the midnight hour now behind them. Whatever awaited, they would face it together, and together, they would forge a new path, cleansing heart and home of the darkness that once reigned over their lives. A future brightened by understanding and love. With the shadows now mere echoes behind them, as daylight broke, Harold nodded at Margaret, their winks of hope shining between them. In this moment of newfound promise, one thought rang true. For the first time, they were alive and real beyond the shadows, just the two of them against the world. Now, before you go, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories dropping soon. Smash that like button to help us reach even more fans and feed the algorithm. And don't wait even one more second to flood the comments section with your thoughts. Share your reactions, theories, and tell us what you think about this chilling conclusion. Lastly, Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this story alive.